Welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson. Delighted and honored to have back with us today our good friend, Laurie Cardoza-Moore. She's the founder and president of pro-Israel Christian organization Proclaiming Justice to the Nations. And she's going to be sharing with us today something you probably don't even know that is going on, and about a kidnapping of 3 young Israeli men and the status of them and what this all means. Hi, Laurie. How you doing?
Good morning, Perry. I'm doing well, thank you. I was listening to the news segment just before I came on the show, and about the whole IRS scandal and how, golly, I lost all my emails and I had a computer crash, and I love how Lois Lerner says that, but I have a solution for them.
What's that?
If she lost all of them, they should just call NSA, because NSA has everybody's emails.
Well, we were talking about that. I think we get 2 16-year-old kids to go in there and find them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's pathetic what this government is doing, and it never ends. Can we hurry up and get past this administration? Will the United States survive? Wow. And of course, for today's story, will Israel survive? And I appreciate you so much having me on the show, Perry, to talk about this issue, because you're exactly right. Hardly anybody knows about this. There's very little news coverage on this story. And of course, now that there have been three Palestinians who have been killed, Abbas is calling for condemnation against Israel because they're going in and wreaking havoc in these communities. It was only 10 days out from this whole Palestinian and Hamas terrorist unity government that we have an abduction of these 3 young men, one of which, Perry, is an American citizen. Of course, in that, just a great example of what we are fighting here are 3 young men, 2 Israeli, 1 U.S. citizen, and they are facing the struggle that our countries are facing as a whole with these radical Islamic extremists. And wow. Of course, the signing of the whole Hamas unity government is pathetic because our government has agreed to this and has even encouraged it. And, you think it's no surprise. And now Abbas is coming out publicly condemning the kidnapping. Well, Mahmoud, you can't have it both ways. Yeah. Either you're against the terrorists. Why, if he condemned it, then why has he not dissolved the whole peace agreement? Yeah, it's words with no action. Where are they? Do we know? Do we know where they're located? They still do not know. Prime Minister Netanyahu did come out yesterday stating that they're finding more information. They're getting closer, but there still is no concrete evidence. They've arrested, the last time I checked, over 300 individuals for questioning. 40 have been detained. The people in the community, there's an interesting movement happening amongst mothers in the land, and PJTN is working to try to collaborate with them and help bring their story to the world. And we're going to have a petition up on our website at pjtn.org. But in the interim, those of you who tweet, I encourage you to go to hashtag Mothers Unite or hashtag, what is the other one? Save Our Sons. Okay. And Save Our Sons, SOS Israel. So that's a way that we can help generate and raise awareness, because you're right, Perry, the media isn't covering this. In fact, Ban Ki-moon at the United Nations, I serve as special envoy at the UN. So I've contacted the Ban Ki-moon's office to get more information, but on the 19th or on the 18th, he came out with a statement condemning the abduction of these 3 young men. Well, yesterday, his deputy spokesman came out backtracking on that, and he basically stated that the United Nations cannot confirm the abduction of these 3 young men. We have information that one of those young men used his cell phone to call the security guard in Kiryat Arba, which is close to Hebron. It's like the next town over. Contacted and left a message, or he called and got the security guy on the phone and said that they had been kidnapped, and then the phone went dead. So we all know the evidence is right there. And for the deputy spokesman of the United Nations to come out and say, well, we can't confirm that they've been abducted, it's absolutely ludicrous. Yeah. After the Secretary General said that we condemn this. I mean, it's pathetic what's happening. I have also contacted the Secretary of State's office to find out, what is the administration doing? I've been scanning the internet this morning, looking to see if there's been anything else taken, any action taken by our government. Absolutely none. So I'm encouraging your listeners, if they will make phone calls to their congressmen and their senators and demand that something be done about this. And while they're calling, Perry, we've got to talk about the slaughter of Christians in the Middle East.
All right.
Christians are being persecuted. Israel is being persecuted. We're both fighting this war together. This affects both of us, both of our countries. And if we as Christians don't speak out, who will on our behalf? I mean, it's disturbing to see what's happening.
A couple things here quickly, Laurie. What do we know who's behind the kidnapping? Who's responsible for it?
Well, all the evidence points to Hamas. Okay. So we're not surprised, because Hamas said they would never recognize, even when they were signing, the ink wasn't even wet or dry on the agreement that they signed with the Palestinian Authority. And they said, we will never stop attacking Israel. We will continue the tirade. And of course, it was 10 days, only 10 days after the signing of that agreement. And here we have 3 young men who've been abducted. So Perry, we got to pray for these guys.
Oh, boy.
Because these are our kids. I have a 16-year-old son. I can relate to how these mothers feel, how Israel. And if you scan YouTube and you go on the internet, you will see these incredible prayer gatherings happening in Israel for the return of these young men. And these same prayer gatherings need to happen in the United States. This is Christians and Jews standing together against our ancient enemy. And
well, let me encourage our viewers and listeners to do just that. Get a hold of your congressmen and senators and ask them to get involved in this and get the administration off their other side and get going on this. Laurie, back to the persecution of Christians and Jews. With all of the craziness happening in Iraq, what's the spillover effect on that there in the Middle East on persecution with Christians?
Well, you know, it's interesting because back in September, I met with Senator Corker, Bob Corker, who is our senator here in Tennessee. He's a ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and I met with his staff September 30th to address these issues with regards to the chaos that is ensuing in the Middle East. The Christians are being slaughtered as a result of the policies of this administration. This administration is not going out and establishing democracies, Western-style democracies. They are establishing Muslim Brotherhood terrorist groups and regimes. And I inquired about what Senator Corker was going to do as a ranking member of this specific committee who represents the belt buckle of the Bible Belt, what they were going to do. And I got a letter a month later saying, you know, Senator Corker had sent a letter to President Obama and asking him to deal with the issue of the persecution of Christians in Egypt. I have heard nothing more. Wow. This man, and it wasn't just, I didn't go to him just about Egypt. I went to him about what's happening to Christians in Tunisia, in Libya, in Syria, in Egypt, and how this is also because of the policies of this administration. They have so destabilized the whole region that not only are Christians running for their lives, now we're seeing the fallout on Israel. Israel is standing out there alone. And they can't even count on their ally, the United States of America, anymore because of the policies of this administration. Because we're not going to support allies who are Western-style democracies. We're going to instead shore up Muslim Brotherhood groups. We saw that with the release of the Taliban members and a defector who is a Muslim Brotherhood member. Of course, our loyalty is to the Muslim Brotherhood or the Muslims. It is not to Christians.
Well, I can't help but think that this administration now has certainly proven that it's not for Israel, has done nothing to support Israel, done everything to support the Islamic terrorists in this throughout the region. It's almost you can't write this story. You can't even think it up.
Absolutely. And Perry, another thing for all of us to really contemplate and think about is if this administration isn't going to rescue Pastor Saeed in Iran.
Right.
If he isn't going to, if this administration is not going to come to the aid of Christians, then this administration is no ally of Christians either. That's very frightening. And unless we as Christians, we're sitting in an election year, Perry. This is so critical. Mm-hmm. Every election cycle, we say, oh, this is the most important election, coming up. Perry, this is the most important election. If we don't take back control of this government and start putting elected officials in places of leadership that are going to uphold our Constitution and uphold our rights as any citizen and protect Christians, Jews, all people of faith, if this administration is not going to do that, there is no hope for the free world. In fact, there's a vacuum that's been created. Mm-hmm. And I was listening to, I think it was Caroline Glick who made the comment that that the United States was the country that ensured and protected human rights around the world. We were the ones that would stand up and speak out. We were the ones who led the charge, and other nations looked to us for leadership. But we are no longer those leaders. A vacuum has been created, and evil and wickedness is filling that vacuum. If there was ever a time that we as Christians have to rise up, it's now.
All right, Laurie, pjtn.org is Laurie's website. You can go there and get a lot of information and get involved in the things that she's very concerned about. In the meantime, what do you want us to do on these kidnappings?
Call your congressmen and senators today and let them know you want them to take action to secure the release of these boys. This administration agreed with this Hamas and Palestinian Authority unity government, and we need the United States government to step in and demand that these boys be brought home.
All right. Laurie, you're a delight. Thank you. Let's stay in touch, and we'll see how this goes, and we'll stay on it, too, at this end.
Thank you, Perry. You guys keep up the great work. God bless you all.
Yeah, God bless you. All right, we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paulina, and I work at theDove TV. Did you know that when you support theDove TV, you have a profound impact, not only in our community, but around the world? It's your continued support that takes the inspiration and hope in the programs we produce and makes them available to the thousands of people who are watching these videos online every week. Help bring encouragement and hope to our valley and beyond by making a secure online donation today at our website, thedove.us.
Welcome back. Earlier, I had the honor to talk to Dr. Ben Carson. Now, Dr. Carson has been in the news lately. He is a very noted pediatric neurosurgeon, headed up that department there at Johns Hopkins Hospital. He recently has been catapulted into national prominence as a result of being the keynote speaker at the National Prayer Breakfast a year or so ago, where he openly criticized Obamacare when the president was sitting right there at his right shoulder. So it was a very interesting time. In the meantime, he has been on all the networks, and there's even a campaign to draft him to run for president. He's authored several books, and it's been several years since I've had an opportunity to interview Dr. Carson, earlier of which we talked about his books, Healing Hands. But his latest book is this one, One Nation, What We Can All Do to Save America's Future. And so join me as we talk to Dr. Ben Carson. Well, today we have the high honor of having with us Dr. Ben Carson. I'm sure you have seen him or heard him on a lot of the networks around the country. He's recently retired as the Director of Pediatric Neurosurgery at Johns Hopkins Hospital. It's been quite a few years since we've chatted with Dr. Carson. When he first authored his book, Gifted Hands, his personal testimony is an inspiring story, to say the least. But we want to talk to him today about his latest book. And may I recommend you getting this book and reading it, One Nation, What We Can All Do to Save America's Future. And it's a fabulous book, and you may want to check it out at the bookstores or online at Amazon. Dr. Carson, nice to have you, my friend.
Thank you. Good to be back with you after all these years.
Yeah. Well, listen, you have been catapulted in the news, obviously, as a result of your interesting speech during the National Prayer Breakfast, which I commend you for. And I'm sure there's a lot of pressure on you to consider public office. But of all the books, why did you write one about the nation? What's on your heart about America?
Well, I was very concerned about the division in our nation. You know, a wise man once said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." And that's exactly what I saw happening to our nation. And our strength is in our unity and in having a vision that we can all get behind. But instead, you know, there are many factors in our society that want just the opposite. They want to divide us. And hence you have a war on women, racial wars, income wars, age wars, religious wars, you name it, there's a war on it. And I think it's quite intentional because there is a desire on behalf of some to fundamentally change America from what it is to the, quote, utopian society. And there have been others who've tried for this utopian society where nobody has to worry about anything from cradle to grave. Government takes care of you. All you have to do is be subservient. And that's just not the American way, quite frankly. And all of those, quote, utopian societies end up looking the same way, with a small group of very elites at the top who have luxurious lives and control everything, a rapidly vanishing middle class, and a rapidly expanding dependent class. You don't have to be much of an observer to see that that's exactly what's happening to us. And we don't need to do that. You know, we have the ability. This is the most powerful economic engine the world has ever seen. All we have to do is let it go, let it work. Stop fettering it with a million regulations and oppressive taxation. You know, these things have worked in the past. They will work for us again. And somehow we've been asleep at the wheel, and we've allowed, over the process of not just this administration, but over the process of decades, our freedoms and the things that really made America into a great nation slip away from us. And it's time to claim them back.
Dr. Carson, we seem to be so polarized. And if anything, as a doctor, maybe you'd understand this, but it seems like we are suffering from a severe case of cynicism. And even among people that we may ideologically agree, we're not being very respectful. I've never seen it this bad. And can we bring it together?
We can, but bear in mind, you know, the nation is sort of like a third-grade classroom where there's no teacher. I mean, what happens? Everybody's throwing spitballs and jumping over seats until the teacher arrives. Well, you know, we haven't really had leadership in this country for a very, very long time. You know, the current administration is interested in division, not in unity. The administration before that was interested in the war. And you know, you keep going back for quite some time before you get a place where you had the kind of inspirational leadership that actually points a direction and helps people to be able to move in that direction rather than just deteriorate into their own little groups, interest groups, and fight each other. This is what we have right now.
One of the issues, and I think it's one of the core spiritual issues of America, is the abortion issue. And I know it's very sensitive and very controversial, but on the other hand, it's very, very spiritual. And if we can correct this one, it seems that all the other things that God would be interested in helping us with would fall into alignment.
Well, it's interesting that we sit around and call other ancient civilizations heathen because of human sacrifice, but aren't we actually guilty of the same thing? But the one thing that I think is so important for Christians and for conservatives, if we're ever going to win this war with abortion, we have to be able to talk about it. We can't just get in a little corner and shield ourselves off and say, you know, this is my issue and I can't deal with anything else. And I liken it very much to the story of Esther in the Bible. You know, she was a Jew, and she hid the fact that she was a Jew. I'm sure a lot of people were not happy about that. What, are you ashamed? And, you know, you got no principles. But she had a larger goal in mind. and she was able to marry the king and to deliver her people. And it's the same way with the abortion issue. You know, we take people and we castigate them because, you know, they may not agree with us on the abortion issue, but they agree with 95% of other conservative principles, and we say we want nothing to do with them. That's the same as voting for the other person. And you're going to have a much better chance of bringing that 95%er along than the one who disagrees with you on 100% of issues. You've got to get your critical masses into place so that you can actually affect legislation. And the good thing is the American populace is moving closer and closer to understanding that abortion is murder.
Yes.
Every year, we're getting better on that regard. So I think it can be done, but we have to be, you know, smart enough not to allow ourselves to believe, as the dividers would, hey, you got to stick to this, and if you relent in any way, you know, you are abandoning your principles and your values. They're playing us.
Wow.
And we have to take the Esther approach, get ourselves into positions where we can actually change it, and then we can save all the babies.
Even at the point, if I perish, I perish. Right?
Even at the point of if I perish, I perish.
All right. The book is titled One Nation by Dr. Ben Carson, and let me encourage you to get a copy of this at the bookstores. It's in 3 sections, 17 chapters plus, and it deals with all of the issues in America. But more importantly, I think what Dr. Carson has done here, he's given some very, very good solutions. Dr. Carson...
And I will just say one interesting thing. The secular progressives have tried everything they can to ignore the book, but it's still #1 on the New York Times bestseller list.
Congratulations. Well deserved. We seem to be in a complete meltdown with this administration, especially within the last 4 or 5 days. I mean, it is in complete meltdown and almost lawless. Maybe it's totally lawless. You know, as bad as that is, what I see happening as a response to this is the citizenry now are realizing, uh-oh, we're way past where we should be, and I'm beginning to sense a pushback. Do you sense that?
Oh, without question. I mean, that's what happened to Eric Cantor. And you're going to see it to a much larger extent, I think, in November. A lot of people are going to be scratching their heads. But I think people are starting to wake up. They are realizing that what we are going to pass on to our next generation is not going to resemble anything that we've known before. And, you know, a large portion of the population was deceived, you know, with this whole hope and change and everything's going to be flowery and no red states and no blue states. Just, you know, this obviously was all a bunch of malarkey.
Yeah.
And now you're seeing with the IRS thing, I mean, this is unbelievable. That they now expect you to believe that the emails were lost, the pertinent ones. I mean, it just insults the intelligence of a 4th grader. Sorry to all the 4th graders. I mean, it's just ridiculous.
All right. Now, I know there's a lot of pressure on you to consider running for office, but hypothetically, if you were president for a day, how would you start healing America?
Well, first of all, I would make it very clear that we have a Constitution, and that it is a extremely well thought out and well done document that led us to the pinnacle of the world in record time, and that we will once again place it front and center. In that Constitution, you know, the First Amendment talks about freedom of religion. I will make sure that people understand that I have no intention of foisting my beliefs on anybody else. However, I do believe that we all have rights, including Christians, including people who are people of faith. They don't have to hide their faith. They can live by it. I think the other thing that I will make very clear is that we have the most powerful economic engine the world has ever known, and we're going to let it loose. We're going to stop regulating it to death. We have dozens of new regulations every single week coming out of Washington, encircling business, industry, and academia. All they have to do is pull the noose on anybody who doesn't cooperate, get rid of all that kind of stuff, completely change the tax code to something that's fair and makes sense. You know, the highest corporate tax rates in the world, absolutely absurd if you want business to flourish in your country. personal taxes, absolutely ridiculous and not encouraging hard work and entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Get rid of all of those kinds of things. Begin to develop our own natural resources. Use our EPA to work with our universities and with industry to find the safest, most effective ways to develop our energy, not to stifle the development of what is a blessing for us, and to use that energy on a geopolitical scale. Make Europe dependent on us for energy, not on the Soviet Union. Put Putin back in his box. Start doing things that actually make sense. I think it would make a big difference.
Boy, that is a powerful statement. Quickly, would you, if you were president for a day, would you abolish the IRS and Obamacare?
There would be no need for the IRS because because we would come up with a very simplified system of taxation that applies equally to everyone in a proportionate way. Okay. So you wouldn't need any IRS. I think it's an abomination, quite frankly.
Okay. And Obamacare?
Obamacare cannot be fixed because the problem with Obamacare is the shifting of power. The most important thing that we have from the individual to the government. That can't stand. That needs to be removed. We need to put the power back in the hands of the people and their health care providers. And I've talked in the book about how health savings accounts can do that. Everybody has one from the day that they are born. Right. They control it. And that will bring the whole healthcare system into the free market. Right. That's what controls quality. That's what controls price.
Finally, Dr. Carson, if you feel led to run for president, and if you were elected, would you do me a favor?
What's that?
I would like for you to stand when you give your first State of the Union address at the podium there, and force the cameras to pan above your head about 8 feet. And
that's a great picture.
And point to the words inscribed in marble. It says, "In God we trust."
Yeah. And
then say whatever the Lord leads you to say in reference to that verse.
Okay. Remind me when that day comes. But yes, I think I can remember to do that.
Are you giving it thought?
I am. Reluctantly. It's certainly not what I intended to do. But the Lord directs your steps, and you have to be always listening to what He says. And I don't know what the role is that He has for me. I don't know if it's in the executive branch. I don't know if it's just as a sentinel to help people wake up. But He will make it clear as time goes on. I'll be very interested in what happens in November, obviously, because the people will have an opportunity to demonstrate, do they want to continue down this road of big government invasion in every part of our lives and the fundamental change of our society, or do they actually believe in the America that became the greatest and strongest nation that the world has ever known? They will give us that indication in November, and obviously that will inform what else needs to be done. And I should just mention, since I'm in your area, Monica Webby is a good person. Don't listen to all the stuff that they're saying as they try to destroy her character. I've known her for many, many years, and she's an outstanding individual.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Carson, and thanks for your time. Best to you. And again, the book is entitled One Nation, What We Can All Do to Save America's Future. This is a must-read, especially between now and November. Get a copy of this book and read it. Thank you, my friend. You remain in our prayers. And
I appreciate it.
If you are elected, I'll try to shoot you an email and make sure you remember to do that on your first State of the Union address.
Well, I'm going to try to make sure that you're there.
Blessings to you. Thanks for your time.
All right. Take care.
Hi, Dr. Ben Carson. Fascinating. We're going to do an open line. We haven't done that in quite a while. We're going to give you a chance to call in, maybe comment on Dr. Carlson's comments. And also, we're going to run for you a video coming up in just a moment of an incredible thing that happened on national network news. I've never seen this in all the years of being in broadcasting. We're going to share that with you and then open up the phone lines and give you a chance to comment. All that and more coming up in a few moments.
Hi, I'm Daniel and I work at theDove TV. You know, compared to Portland, Seattle, and LA, Medford might be considered a small market, but at theDove, we're excited about the opportunity to make a big impact right here in our community. And you help make that happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us now by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us, or by phoning 541-776-5368.
Well, we're back, and for the next few segments, we want to give you a chance to call in and talk and share your thoughts and your opinions and your point of view. Maybe you want to comment from Dr. Ben Carson. As you know, he is under a lot of pressure to consider running for president in 2016. I don't know if he's going to do that, but I think he is certainly showing that he may be a viable candidate in the very near future. And I think that his approach to some of America's problems are certainly reasonable and certainly tempered with a belief system that certainly echoes Christianity. So we want to hear from you. Our phone number is 541-776-5368, 541-776-5368, or if you're outside the immediate area, toll free, and that's 800-373-5368. Now, part of this discussion, I've never seen this happen on network television before, but there seems to be a shift going on within the media that is starting to be significant and in some ways very alarming. This past Tuesday, Megyn Kelly, who's one of the key anchor people on Fox News, probably the most popular news anchor now in the country, and she has her own program called Kelly File. And then Brit Hume, who is the senior political commentator on Fox News, she did an opening monologue to her program this past Tuesday. It was very, very interesting. I've never seen an anchor person say what she had said before. And then right after she had that opening monologue, she went right into an interview with Brit Hume. Collectively, Megyn Kelly said that the presidency now has imploded. And Brit Hume has said, we now have a failed presidency. Now, folks, this may sound political, but let's look at it in the big context. We've never seen an administration or the presidency, the third branch of government, the executive branch, in meltdown. And we have that going on right now in our country. It is unbelievable. We have scandal after scandal after scandal, more than I can possibly mention here. And Megyn will do that in a minute. And what's at risk now is the security of our nation and the trust of our nation and the believability of our nation. It's an all-time low. In fact, Congress's overall poll rating this past week had reached an all-time low of 7%. Now, we are in a modern-day national crisis, and you might think it's all political, you might think it's all wrapped up in the news media, but the bottom line, this is serious stuff. I want to play for you the opening monologue of Megyn giving her comments, followed by a short interview with Brit Hume, and then give you a chance to respond. What do you think? And again, our phone number is 541-776-5368 or toll-free 800-373-5368. Here's that opening monologue this past Tuesday.
Welcome to the Kelly File, everyone. I'm Megyn Kelly. Breaking tonight, is Barack Obama's presidency imploding? Al-Qaeda is resurging, Iraq is disintegrating, and now we may look to Iran to help us stop it. Iran, a terrorist regime responsible for the deaths of thousands of Americans. What could possibly go wrong? We have drawn red lines in Syria we refuse to enforce. We stood by as Russia seized part of Ukraine. And now we are releasing top Taliban leaders as the Afghanistan war is still going. Not to worry, they tell us Qatar's going to watch them for a year, we hope. Domestically, we have a president who has lost the trust of the American people by repeatedly misleading them. He bypasses Congress, the people's representatives, on matters ranging from Obamacare to immigration law, to the point where one of the most respected liberal law professors in the country has called our president the very danger the Constitution was designed to avoid. The American public overwhelmingly regrets Obamacare. Our veterans are dying, waiting to see doctors. The IRS intimidates conservative groups. The southern border is compared to a sieve. And the president assures us not to worry, smiling, golfing, and at this very moment, partying with fashion queen Anna Wintour. Because the fundraising never stops. Not when 4 Americans die in Benghazi, and not when Baghdad is at the brink. Joining us now with reaction, our senior political analyst, Britt Hume. Britt?
Well, that's a pretty powerful indictment, Megan, and I kind of wish I could take issue with any of its individual parts, and I really can't. In fact, I would add one more thing, which is that if you think of the issue that elected Barack Obama, the issue that was an avalanche on the Republican ticket in 2008, it was the economy. And here we are now, how many years into this administration, we have not had anything like the robust recovery that we're accustomed to seeing after recessions, and especially indeed after deep recessions. The unemployment rate is still persistently high, it's down from what it was, but mostly that's because the workforce has been shrunk. Not exactly a great achievement. So if you're looking at what the American people are feeling and sensing, that would have to be very high on the list. And of course, as they look out across the landscape of our borders and across the world, there seem to be problems virtually everywhere, and it is hard to point to a place where things are really better than they were. There may be a few, but they're not the main ones.
On the foreign policy front, you've got editorials like the one that appeared in the New York Daily News today, not exactly known for its right-wing leanings. The toll wreaked by his disengagement from the world and retreat from the use of American influence is severe. The world is reaping what Obama helped sow, they write. Is it true? Because more and more we are hearing that his policies have not only changed America, Britt, but have changed the landscape of the world.
Well, I think, Megan, that he had an idea, and it was a big idea, which was basically this, as far as American foreign policy in the world is concerned, which is that the American footprint in the world was too big and had done much harm, and that we as a nation, because of our foreign adventures and the way we threw our weight around, were a big part of the problem. And if we withdrew and shrank our footprint, that things would get better. He says now that he believes deeply in American exceptionalism, but I think that he's just saying that. He didn't really, and of course you may recall he famously said at an earlier time that he believed that, we were exceptional in the same way the Greeks believe that they're exceptional. Mm-hmm. And I think what he did was he tried to diminish our footprint around the world in the view that would eliminate this major aggravating factor in the world, which was the United States' presence in foreign lands and with our military. Well, he's done it. We're out of Iraq. We're seeing what's happening there. We're getting out of Afghanistan. The enemy is known for some time that we are, and it's not at all clear to me that look. You can blame George Bush for getting us into Afghanistan, but he bequeathed into Iraq, but he bequeathed to Obama a lot better situation than we have there now.
Joe Biden was saying it was going to be one of the greatest successes of the administration.
Well, that's right, and of course, I think that the president really believes that leaving is is winning, and we're finding out that that's not true. That this American exceptionalism that people have talked about means that we practice around the world a kind of diplomacy backed by the threat of force. And I think the history of the last century or more has shown that when we do that, we are a force for good. I think this president did not believe that.
How about the history of this presidency? How is it looking now? Because more and more over the past year, we've heard Barack Obama being compared as, we've heard Bobby Jindal, John McCain say he's worse than President Carter. I mean, those are Republicans who are obviously going to be critics of the president. Fair comparison? How is he stacking up now?
Well, I hate to say it, because, I'm an American. I wanted a robust recovery. I wanted a more peaceful world. We don't have it. He's failing. I don't think there's much question about it. Things, I suppose, could turn around, but it's hard for me to imagine that the same policies, which he seems hesitant to change, are going to bring anything but similar results going forward. So I think we're looking at a failed presidency.
Wow. Those are two big statements I've never heard on national news before. Where you have people who are top correspondents and anchor people saying that we have a failed presidency, or in a presidency over the last 3 or 4 days that has imploded. We want to hear from you. What do you think? What should believers do? What should be our mind, our attitude, our heart about this mess of our beloved country? What are we doing about it? Are you praying for America? I'd love to hear from you. 541-776-5368. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Paula, and I work at theDove TV. Every day we get letters and emails from people who've been encouraged, blessed, and challenged by the programs on theDove TV. But we couldn't do it without you. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to bring inspiration and hope to our community by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us, or call us at 541-776-5368.
Okay, we're back. In the few moments we have left in the segment, we'd love to hear from you. It's been a while since we've opened up the phone lines, and our phone number is 541-776-5368, or toll free if you're listening and watching outside the immediate Medford area. That's 800-373-5368. And let's go right to the phone. John, thanks for waiting. Your thoughts today?
I'm surprised to be on so quickly. I always enjoyed your show. The woman that was on earlier, and the author, and then you got Fox. There's just one thing that seems to be missing. They're always talking about division and all these things. Well, I in my heart feel that our president has been trying to unify and change the direction our country was going and getting us out of a military footing, which to me is a Christian belief. You ask how we feel. We feel God and our Lord teaches us to turn the other cheek and to not, attack or whatever. It just seems to me like we've been on a fascist footing. I mean, literally, to me. Mm-hmm. When you're using the definition of fascism is using military might to solve your problems. All I feel is that our president is trying to approach our problem way and just getting total opposition. You
mean primarily
he's getting no cooperation from the legislative branch. And he can't do it on it at all. It takes all three branches working together to make our nation work.
So let me get this straight, John. You're primarily concerned about the war efforts. I mean, that's the one that you're objecting to?
Well, in sight that's what's gotten us in our economic disasters and all that, our blunders in military spending, and the president, when he first got into office, he agreed that he wouldn't attack the administration, and there was all kinds of House hearings and Senate judiciary hearings.
Well, I think
evidence against the previous administration, and he was honorable in saying, "Okay, we're going to move on. We're not going to do that." Okay. I felt that had he done those things, then the American people would further understand what actual degradation that these people caused our nation with their military spending.
Interesting.
And how they personally profited from it.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, John. Thanks for your thoughts.
All right. Thank you.
Okay. 776-5368 or toll free 800-373-5368. Hi, Dick. Thanks for waiting. What's your mind today?
Yeah. Good morning, Perry. Good morning from the coast.
Hey.
It's beautiful over here. But anyway, my comment is this. I think you're looking at this thing in the wrong way, in that this is not a failed presidency. This is a wildly successful presidency based on what this man's agenda was to begin with, and what his background is, and what his mentors were, and all of the stuff that he had studied and represented prior to ever becoming a politician. This man has been more successful at destroying this country and its image and its principles than any other president in my lifetime, which is some 70 years, and is in the process of putting us in a position which will take many years and a generation to recoup where we were as a great nation and as a nation which leads according to God's word and God's blessing. He has. This was really very evident right from the very beginning of where this man was coming from, and he has been very successful in advancing his agenda, which he lied about, which he bamboozled a whole population of people. And the Christians, unfortunately, didn't see this. They don't see it as a threat to what God has blessed this country with, and I don't buy this business at all that we're supposed to be just another third world country in the world. We were given by God a mission to make this world better, and I think we have, despite what people think about the wars and all that. Remember the wars, World War II, World War I, we liberated a lot of people from the yoke of oppression. Mm-hmm. And now, because of Vietnam and all the protests and all that stuff, along with what's going on with Iraq and the way it's been handled lately, yeah, you can be against war, but the fact is that biblically, war has always existed in mankind. That's part of our sin nature. But anyway, I think we should all be praying on our knees, fasting and praying, that the sooner this man is taken out of there and we reverse the track which God has given us as a leader in this world, as a Christian nation, the better off we'll be.
Well, you have said that very well, Dick. Yeah, I mean, you gave the flip side of the coin, and that is from his perspective and from the liberal perspective, and even those who think that America's too big and too bullish and too whatever, he's been very successful in dismantling what we've known as a constitutional government, exceptionalism of the United States, and has brought us down to where we are today. So from that standpoint, yeah, his presidency has been successful. But as it relates to traditional America, as it relates to constitutional America, as it relates to, there's only two countries that I know of on the face of the earth that are covenant countries, the United States and Israel. What have we done to ourselves there? What have we now listen, part of this problem is us because we elected this guy twice.
That's right. Yeah. And shame on us as a nation, and shame on us as a important sparking force as Christians that we have not done our job at paying attention to what was going on. We're so concerned about our own little things, and we have not seen what this rolls out.
Yeah,
in the whole world.
I've interviewed rabbis and members of the Knesset in Israel, and I've tried to convey to them, do they still believe that the faith community within the United States is still pro-Israel? And there was a time they would say yes, but now they're saying, we don't think so now because you reelected somebody who is anti-Israel twice. So that's an indictment on the faith community for not standing up.
Yes, that is. And unfortunately, I think he stands up more for the Muslim. And obviously, in many of his policies and many of his comments, we can see that very clearly. And if the Christian people cannot see that and recognize what he really is, then shame on us.
Dick, thanks for your call today, and enjoy that beautiful coastal weather, huh?
You bet. Thanks,
all right, God bless. All right, well, just a little open comment. We're going to do more of this in the future. I just want to give you a chance to kind of warm up to the idea. You can go to the Dove Facebook page now and then. We'll post some questions. We'd love to hear from you, and then we'll quote those a little bit later on. But I think there is a spiritual responsibility here to all of us. It sounds hard and gloomish and doomish, but God's still in control. There's an old saying is you don't break God's laws break you. Covenant keepers win, covenant breakers lose. So if we continue to seek God, I believe things can turn around and will turn around. You may want to get a copy of this book. It's pretty interesting, One Nation by Dr. Ben Carson. I think some of his spiritual applications to the problem is pretty refreshing. You might find this to be a good read. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.
Hi, I'm Jim, and I work at theDove TV. Every weekday between 6 and 8 a.m., our award-winning news and sports team bring you the best morning show around. It's live, it's honest, and it's a whole lot of fun. And you help make it happen. Did you know that more than 90% of our income comes from people like you? You can help us continue to air local programs that share your voice by making a secure online donation at our website, theDove.us.